When the fires broke out across Northern California last year, I was waiting to find out if I'd pass the bar. I got a call from Ronit Rubinoff, Executive Director of Legal Aid of Sonoma County, where I'd interned during law school. "This is far beyond anything we've seen before," Ronit said. "We need your help right away." I agreed to come on board. I coordinated outreach and took calls around the clock. In those first few weeks, I talked to over 500 people displaced by the disaster. Fire doesn't discriminate between rich and poor, but it is the most vulnerable who face the greatest barriers in its aftermath. Almost every matter we came across required legal expertise. A month in, when I found out I was bar certified, I knew I had my work cut out for me. It was Journey's End, a mobile home park where the Tubbs fire burned 3/4 of the property, destroyed the power grid, and claimed 3 lives. That felt most urgent. Journey's End had been family-owned for 60 years, and before the fires, rents there were the most affordable in the county. Survivors were all low income, elderly, or disabled. It didn't take much digging to uncover major problems. Families who lost their homes at Journey's End qualified for FEMA-funded hotel vouchers, but after just 6 weeks, FEMA pulled the benefit without warning or explanation. Of the 161 mobile homes originally in the park, only 44 remained. FEMA told people, "Your house is fine, it's still standing." But due to smoke damage and lack of utilities, they were uninhabitable. Insurance companies denied claims, banking on residents' inability to fight back. The most people won were small payouts to fix cracks or repaint. Every single resident was on the verge of homelessness. We patched together short-term solutions, a private donation here, a church basement there, until last February when park owners entered discussions with nonprofit developer Burbank Housing. Burbank was preparing to clear the land and redevelop, granting first access to survivors from the park. But I knew that residents wouldn't be able to afford any increase in rent, and that depending on the timeline, the oldest might not live long enough to see the end result. I researched mobile home park closures and jotted down the list of protections under California state law. "Look, I get it," I said to Burbank. It's a gray area. The park wasn't fully destroyed, but these people lost everything. If you're going to close Journey's End and build, they're entitled to support. They agreed to partner with me. I wrote appeals to FEMA and secured as much temporary housing as I could. Battles with insurance companies are ongoing, but with these resources combined, I'm hopeful we can provide a future for the people of Journey's End. Bigger picture challenges remain. When the fires hit, at least 70% of renters and homeowners were underinsured, many severely. FEMA wasn't built for wildfires. Unlike a hurricane or a tropical storm, there's no infrastructure left to repair or assess. The debris removal process alone took 10 months. Now there's fear FEMA won't issue an extension, cutting off rental assistance, and taking away the trailers at the fairgrounds, where over 100 people still live. There are dozens of other land use, contract, and employment matters we expect to play out over the next 5 to 10 years. We will be in this for another decade, if not more. As the tragic Camp and Woolsey fires have proven over the past month, these disasters should no longer come as a surprise. We are working alongside state policymakers to better regulate the insurance industry and shield people from this kind of devastation in the future. This October, on the anniversary of the fires, there were events all over the community. The vigil at Journey's End was the last of 3 I attended that day. I arrived to find rows of white chairs set across the black ground. There was a small table with pictures of those who had passed away and electric candles flickering in the dark. People shared memories and reflected on the year. As things were winding down, the man who organized the vigil stood and said, "We want to recognize Legal Aid of Sonoma County. Thank you for being there for us. Thank you for paying attention. As a lawyer, you don't often get moments like this. I certainly don't do this work for the acknowledgement, but his words meant everything to me. Law school teaches you a lot about fact. You look at case law or statutory law and say, this is what happened, so this is what follows, black, white. But with a disaster, particularly one of this size and scale, there is no blueprint, there is no precedent. In the middle of it all, Tipping Point came forward with the funds needed to sustain my position. We were able to stop worrying about where resources would come from and focus on doing our best work. It was also Tipping Point who recognized the degree of need at Journey's End and channeled funds to Burbank Housing. You've done more than anyone else to give survivors there a fighting chance at recovery. It's now my pleasure to introduce you to one of my clients, Sean Place. I met with Sean for several weeks last spring to work on his FEMA application. When his $6,000 benefit check finally came through, Sean showed up at our offices wanting to pay his bill. There is no bill, Lisa, our case manager, told him. Our services are provided free of charge. Lisa said that Sean started to tear up. He made a $100 donation to legal aid on the spot, and here he is.